The magic of banking words: trust, credit, deposit, bond, as ritual language. Welcome back. I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and this is the Money Magic series. If money is a ritual system, then language is the wand that moves it. Before a vault door opens, before numbers ripple across a screen, before a contract tightens around assets and time, there is a word spoken or written, an utterance that does not describe reality so much as create it. Philosophers of language call these performative words: I promise, I bequeath, I accept, I sentence you, I now pronounce. In finance, 4 words carry an outsized charge, 4 syllables that function like operating commands inside the temple of capital: trust, credit, deposit, bond. Each comes from an older tongue, each smuggles a worldview, each binds flesh and blood lives to paper bodies and digit systems. When bankers and legislators repeat them, they are not speaking casually. They are working with ritual language, legal spells whose repetition keeps the machinery of wealth humming. Begin with trust. In everyday speech, it feels soft, human, emotional. But in the lineage of language, trust is not a feeling. It is a foundation stone. It comes down to us through Germanic roots: traust, treau, troth, from a Proto-Indo-European stem meaning firm, solid, enduring, the same family tree that gives us true and even tree, that symbol of rootedness. To trust is to treat something as firm enough to stand on. The law hardens that poetry into a device. Trust is an arrangement that splits ownership. One party holds legal title, another enjoys the benefit. Medieval crusaders leaving for the East conveyed land to the use of someone who would manage it for wives and children. The courts of equity matured that practice into the modern trust. It is everyday magic. By incantation and signature, a single piece of property is divided into seen and unseen, legal and equitable, mask and face. The trustee appears on the registry. The beneficiary inhabits the fruit. Whoever masters that split, families, foundations, sovereign funds, masters continuity. Flesh dies, charters don't. A well-drafted trust keeps wealth walking forward while its original feet are long underground. Trust bleeds into another power word: fiduciary, from fides, Latin for faith. A fiduciary owes duties of loyalty and care higher than ordinary commerce, because the regime confesses something awkward. Once you allow the occult division of ownership, someone must swear priestly vows to keep the visible title serving the invisible beneficiary. The ritual is thick with oath language: in good faith, in trust, to the best of my knowledge and belief. Notice that last pairing: knowledge and belief. Finance is a cathedral built on both: the numbers on the ledger and the collective willingness to believe they will hold. Now say credit aloud. Hear the cousin of credo: I believe. You can feel the hinge. Credit is not coins, it is belief about a future. A bank extends credit not because metal has changed hands, but because belief has been formalized. We believe you will perform later, so we transfer power now. Letters of credit made medieval trade move without wagons of silver. A Templar's ink-stamped parchment could draw purchasing power a sea away. In the modern sphere, central banks speak and markets tremble because credit is exquisitely language-sensitive. Forward guidance, a paragraph of carefully calibrated verbs, adds or deletes trillions in paper wealth. A ratings agency moves a sovereign one notch and the cost of schools, bridges, and hospitals changes for a generation. That's not the movement of matter. It's the movement of belief scored into ritual speech. To receive credit is to be adjudged credible. Hence credentials, credibility, creed. The church vocabulary never left us. It put on a pinstripe suit. Your credit score is a private priesthood's belief index about your future obedience to time. Will you, across months and years, render unto the bond what the bond claims? The line of credit handed to a company is a literal line drawn into the future. Accountants then inscribe it backward into the present as if the future had already happened. This is financial time magic, made ordinary by repetition. The ledger, double entry, a Renaissance conjuration of symmetry, keeps it all balanced. But don't be fooled. The power is not only in the numbers, it is in the words that authorize numbers to act. Move to deposit. The sound is gentle. I'll just deposit this and be on my way. But the word is a trapdoor with a smile. From Latin deponere, to put down, to set aside, depositum was a thing placed with another for safekeeping. In ordinary speech, we still imagine a deposit as our money resting in the bank, slumbering in a labeled drawer. In law, though, a deposit in a modern bank is not a bailment, a thing held for you. It is a loan to the bank. The instant your wage hits, the money becomes the bank's property. You receive in exchange a claim, a promise payable on demand. The ritual phrase, your deposit is insured, is there to keep the spell intact, to soothe the cognitive whiplash between what people believe a deposit is, custody, and what the contract says a deposit does, transfer of title. This underlying metamorphosis, custody turning into debt through language, is among the most quietly powerful spells in the temple of money. It allows your savings to be rehypothecated, multiplied, pledged, lent again, moving as numbers through balance sheets while you still imagine a jar with your name on it. Even the architecture of deposits is saturated with priestly vocabulary. Escrow, from the old word for a scroll, is a sealed writing held until rites are complete. Custody comes from guardianship, the watch of a warden at a gate. Security safekeeping is a reliquary with fobs and seals, an electronic crypt where fragments of ownership are entombed and resurrected with a mouse click. A time deposit promises interest as a sacrament of deferred gratification. In exchange for surrendering present liquidity, you receive a periodic blessing called yield. The language polices the borders between now and later, mine and thine, flesh and paper. And a tiny line on your statement, the bank's liability to you, tells the metaphysical truth. The deposit is not there. The deposit is owed. Finally, bond. Few words confess their magic as plainly. A bond is a binding, a tie, a ligature. In Latin law, the obligatio was literally a tying around, as if a cord were looped across the debtor's life. Medieval indentures were serrated copies of a single promise. The matching edges proved the pact. The edge itself was a sigil. The modern bond keeps the same skeleton. A government issues a promise to pay on a certain date. The paper, or its dematerialized twin, becomes a fetter that encircles not merely numbers, but the future labor of millions. In wartime, the offering was frank. War bonds sold citizens a role in binding their own future to the state's present need, with parades and posters staging the purchase as communal liturgy. In peacetime, the rite is quiet. Pension funds, insurers, and central banks take turns holding the cord. Meanwhile, the word's shadow meanings keep whispering. Bondage, bondman. The old kinship between debt and servitude lives on in language because it lives on in effect. To be in bonds is to be interlaced with the time of another. Consider how those four words interlock to conduct a single symphony. Trust splits ownership and requires faith. Credit pulls tomorrow into today by the force of belief. Deposit translates a layman's, please hold this, into a lawyer's, you've loaned us your property. Bond ties the flow of future payments to institutions that do not die. Together, they draft a grammar of control. Believe, bind, place, trust. The verbs correspond to movements in a ceremony. We believe, credit, we bind, bond, we place, deposit, and we entrust, trust. Once the four are in play, the rest of the vocabulary slots in like liturgy. Principle, from princeps, chief. Interest, from intrasse, that which is between parties. Obligation, the tied around. Mortgage, the dead pledge that ends when either the debt is paid or the pledge is dead through foreclosure. Fiat money, Latin for let it be done. Pure incantation. Legal tender, this note is a performative spell. Consideration, the star, situs. You and I have looked under the same star. We have given something of value. The law of money is not decorated with ritual. It is ritual, codified. Observe how these words operate in the world. A judge intones, judgment is entered, and by voice, moves wealth from one column to another. A central banker says, we will do whatever it takes, and sovereign bond yields fall as if gravity were speech-sensitive. A regulator declares a deposit insured, and millions of private choices relax into the collective assumption that the spell will hold when the tide runs out. The ritual power of the vocabulary is not a metaphor. It is operational. Markets are hypersensitive microphones for carefully engineered sentences. There is also a profound anthropology hidden in this lexicon. In ancient temples, worshippers brought offerings, priests affirmed the right, and gods were thought to reciprocate with rain, crops, fertility. Today, the trust agreement is our altar. We lay assets upon it and expect continuity to descend. The credit committee is our oracle. It divines the worthiness of petitioners. The deposit facility is the offertory plate. We place what is ours into a common basket and accept a token of promise in return. The bond desk is the covenant stone. Treaties between citizens and the abstract Leviathan are engraved there like commandments, with maturities for feasts and fasts, 30-year, 10-year, 5-year cycles, liturgical time inscribed into cash flows. Even the small print echoes priestly exclusions and permissions. Subject to force majeure is a clause for acts of God. Subject to appropriation is a right of the state. Under seal harks back to physical wax, stamped and cooling, where authority could be touched and smelled. We no longer smell it, but we still treat seals and databases as if their invisibility were more powerful than wax ever was. In the hush of a settlement room, a clerk whispers, released, and value crosses oceans faster than any ship ever sailed. Trust, credit, deposit, bond. Each word also hides a human cost. To be trusted institutionally is often to be obscured. Trusts can shelter the powerful from public view, a cloaking device that keeps assets glowing while their owners flicker in and out of sight. To receive credit is to be measured continuously by algorithms. Your life becomes a series of probabilities scored against you, and belief hardens into a cage. Believed capable of paying, you are offered lines. Believed risky, you are damned to costs that ensure riskiness. To deposit in a crisis is to rehearse the theater of faith. You perform the rite of confidence until the line outside a certain branch turns your recitation into doubt. To be in bonds collectively is to discover that a promise made by long-dead legislators will govern the taxes your grandchildren pay. Ritual language is not neutral. It allocates fate. But language can also expose the mechanics and, in exposure, return agency. Once you know that deposit is a transfer of title, not a tuck in the safe, you stop telling fairy tales to yourself about jars with your name on them. Once you feel the ecclesiastical origin of trust, you see why trustee oaths matter and why conflicts of interest are desecrations, not mere inefficiencies. Once you hear the catechism behind credit, you understand that belief can be landscaped by policy, and that prudence in speech is a monetary instrument. Once you grasp that a bond is a tie, you stop pretending that public borrowing is metaphysically different from private promise. Both are chords and chords not. The occult quality of these words lies not in sinister secrecy, but in depth. Meanings layered over centuries, polished by courts, sanctified by repetition, capable of moving matter because people and institutions allow them to. The magic is collective and performative. A single person saying credit conjures nothing. A network of banks saying credit, with capital and law behind them, conjures cities. A hermit can write, "I trust you," and it is affection. A chancery judge writes, "In trust," and centuries of jurisprudence crystallize around those two syllables. A child says, "bond," and pictures friendship bracelets. A treasury says, "bond," and grafts a $1 trillion vine to the future. When you look at the monetary system through this lens, you begin to see why an economy can be upended by a paragraph and stabilized by a sentence. You see why fortunes tumble on a misstressed verb in a press conference. You see why full faith and credit is not rhetorical fluff, but the backbone of sovereign finance, the explicit yoking of fides, faith, and credere, belief, in a single formula. You see why each paycheck carries a ritual journey. Wages are deposited, title transferred. Balances create credit, belief extended. Savings are set in trust, ownership split, and taxes service bonds, ties honored. 4 words, 4 doors, each opening into a chamber where modern life is transformed into contractual time. In older ages, the priest raised the chalice and said words that, for the faithful, transubstantiated wine. In our age, the clerk stamps the paper and says words that, for the faithful, transubstantiate promises. Fiat, let it be done. The difference is surface. The mechanism, communal assent to a ritual utterance, is the same. Trust turns a document into a vessel. Credit turns a future into a present. Deposit turns possession into debt. Bond turns intention into a cord around years. If this sounds grand, it is only because the stakes are grand. These words allocate shelter and hunger, school and clinic, war and peace. They do it quietly, in conference rooms with coffee cups and patterned carpets, in itemized pages where the magic is font size 8. But the world moves when they move. Watch them closely, hear their roots, examine their grammar. They are the keys used daily to unlock and relock the vault where human time is stored. And so, as we step deeper into the architecture of occult money, keep the lexicon in your ear. When a contract says in trust, imagine the mask sliding over title and the beneficiary standing behind it. When a policymaker says credit is flowing, imagine belief irrigating a parched field, and also picture the flood when the dikes fail. When your app says deposit received, remember that the coin you thought you placed has already been alchemized into the bank's liability. What you hold is a claim, a promise, an IOU underwritten by rituals you did not write. When headlines murmur bond vigilantes, hear the returning ancient, the idea that those who buy and sell the cords of time can discipline kings. The language never stopped being sacred. We only stopped hearing it as such. There is no need to fear these words. There is every reason to read them. Their power depends on sleepwalking. Wakefulness reduces their occult to craft, their spell to syntax. And once you see the craft, you can choose how to stand inside it, when to accept, when to refuse, when to draft your own sentences in reply. For the art of money is at bottom an art of speech. The system that binds us also speaks to us. It announces its tools: trust, credit, deposit, bond. Say them slowly, and you can feel the joins, the hinges where belief in law, promise and time, flesh and paper meet. That feeling is the point of entry. That's where literacy becomes leverage. That's where words stop being spells cast upon you and start becoming spells you can read back, word for word, clause by clause, until the magic shows its seams. Welcome back. I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and this is the Manifestation series, where we don't just talk about manifesting, we master it. Because let's be honest, manifestation has been watered down, reduced to vague quotes, mood boards, and empty promises. But you didn't come here to wish. You came here to build a reality that hits different. A reality that responds to your frequency, your language, your alignment, and your decision to stop playing small. This series is not fluff. It's physics, frequency, and fierce creative power. Inside the Manifestation series, you're going to learn how to collapse timelines, shift identities, and speak worlds into existence, just like the greatest minds in history. This isn't just about being positive. This is about being powerful. Here's what you unlock inside. Vision to reality, the vision board course. You've heard about vision boards, but you've never done them like this. This is a full energetic ritual, a precision-coded map for your subconscious, designed to bridge image, frequency, and strategy. It's not arts and crafts. It's blueprinting your future in visual form and turning it into matter. Time, quantum timelines, and why time isn't real. Manifestation doesn't take time, it takes alignment. In this module, I'll show you how time is just a mirror of energy and how to collapse timelines using choice, clarity, and vibration. Past, present, future, they're happening now. And when you know how to navigate time quantum style, you stop waiting and start receiving. Quantum jumping, instantly up level. Your next level life isn't years away. It's one decision away. In this training, you'll learn how to quantum jump, how to shift into a version of you that already has what you desire. This isn't fantasy. It's how high-performance creators, athletes, and spiritual masters leap beyond limits. Jump now. Land in power. Every word. The power of affirmations and spoken language. Words build worlds. In this course, I show you how to use affirmations like spell work, not just repeating empty mantras, but speaking with vibration, intention, and spiritual force. If you've ever felt like affirmations don't work, this will change everything. You'll learn to command your field, not just request from it. The greats, learning from the most exceptional minds in history. We're not the first to master this. In this legendary module, we decode the techniques, habits, and quantum genius of the world's most powerful manifestors, from ancient sages to modern icons. You'll learn how to think like the greats, move like the greats, and manifest like the greats. This isn't another feel-good series. This is a spiritual weapon, disguised as a manifestation course. It's made for leaders, cycle breakers, visionaries, and soul builders. You don't need another wish list. You need a system that teaches you how to bend reality. This is that system. So if you're ready to stop playing with potential and start creating results, welcome to your next level. The manifestation series is open now. You know what to do. Let's build what they said was impossible and make it inevitable.